Hey y'all, still Paige here. I'm Paige for those that haven't seen the last two. This week is week 4, talking about atmosphere for 5th grade fall lesson plans. The atmosphere one, honestly, is not one of my favorites. It's tough to get through, kind of difficult to explain, so I'm going to do my best to assist you guys and make sure that you are the best prepared before teaching your 5th graders. So atmosphere, it's helpful to dissect each layer. You have like the mesosphere, the stratosphere, whatever. It's listed on the PowerPoint slides, so make sure you go over those in the same folder. But what I found helpful, depending on your classroom, if you have a document camera or a whiteboard, use whatever is most helpful for you, but it helps to draw each one out at a time, starting with what's closest to us down in life, so you can draw like little stick figure humans and then layer the atmosphere levels as you discuss them so that they can have a visual and kind of build onto that visual. And oftentimes my students, some of them liked writing, some of them were very much more visual learners, so it would be helpful because as we were going over the terms, they would draw it in their science journal alongside the definition. So just make sure, I would recommend drawing it out for them too, just helping with the different types of learners in your class. And then drawing like a little icon is usually helpful for the different layers. So like, for example, the troposphere is the first one next to what we're living and breathing, and that's like where the jet planes are. So just like draw a little plane icon. And then like when you get up to the thermosphere, the mesosphere, like draw the little meteoroids, draw the little satellite. Like having something so that they can gauge distance too helps. You don't need to know the actual kilometers away from Earth. That's just like an added detail if someone's curious. Like, once again, I had some very like intelligent kids who were beyond everyone else, the rest of the group, and they would ask very insightful questions. So then having that extra piece of knowledge was helpful for them. But honestly, it's a lot of information to already be throwing at them. So I never really discussed the kilometers with the whole class, only if like someone was showed a lot of interest in it. And then for the actual experiment, basically we would work in table groups because it goes by a lot quicker. And you have plates, 4 paper plates to represent 4 different layers, and then you tie them together with string. And then there's a key on the PowerPoint and also in the instructions doc describing how each color represents a different gas molecule. So like you have oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon dioxide, I believe. And it's just oxygen and nitrogen, and then other gases is the last one. They do not understand this. I've done this 2 years, 3 classes each. It is impossible for them to understand this. I don't know if it's the key or the associating colors with a word with a number. Like, it's a lot to put together because, like, for example, oxygen is blue. You have 3 oxygen on one plate, but 5 on the next. So 3 blue, 5 blue. Like, it's just hard to understand. It's really, really, really difficult for them to grasp. And I was always shocked like this. Sometimes I would get like frustrated. I'm like, come on, like, you just have to be super patient. This is a very patience practicing exercise because it's difficult to explain in terms, because it's like you're thinking like, how much easier can I explain this? So what I found was helpful was drawing out the key, despite it being projected on the screen, or you might want to put a picture of the example on there too, on the whiteboard or document camera. Once again, I would write, like, I'm just going to pull up an example. For example, the troposphere is 19 nitrogen, 5 oxygen, and 1 other gases in that layer. So you would write like 19 nitrogen red, 19 red dots. Honestly, you can kind of gauge your class, but sometimes it might be easier to just do like, say like 19 red, 5 blue, 1 yellow, and then you can discuss like, so the one that you see the most of is nitrogen, the one that you see the second most of is oxygen, which is what we breathe, etc. But finding a way that's easy to break down this key, because if you just project it and be like, okay, like now you guys are free to just do this experiment, they're going to have a million questions about this one. And we've done it 2 different ways the 2 years I've done it, so TBD, but 1 year it was like cutting out the individual pieces of the different colors of construction paper, so you'd have like red and blue and yellow, and you had to cut the number of gas molecules that you needed per plate, which took a lot of time because cutting that many circles was difficult. And then this year we just did dots, like with markers, which was a lot easier. But make sure that everyone is, each table group is dividing up the work fairly too for this one, because it feels like someone can just do it all themselves, but it's important to make sure that everyone feels like they're contributing. So depending on the numbers, it helps to either have one person doing the 3 different gases, one person doing people on each different plate, however you want to make sure that it's split up, depending on how many kids you have in your class, because honestly each class is different. Mine were always smaller, so it was easier, but I understand that they're not always that way. So yeah, just making sure that they understand the key and don't get too confused for it, because that's just been my biggest issue. Like, I've always been kind of shocked about how confused they were, but it's very intimidating when you just get given like 12 different keys to put on 4 different plates. So make sure, honestly, you might have to break it down like step by step. So make sure that they have all 4 plates, they label each 4 with the different layers that are in the big writing, and then you can honestly like walk them through and be like, okay, like now each person select one person to do 19 red dots, and then like make everyone on the same page. In the past, I've heard that that's what some TAs have done, and it's a good time passer because you're literally taking it one step at a time. Or you just write like 19 red, 5 blue on this plate, and you can even take it one plate at a time. Honestly, it might take some trial and error for you to understand like your class's capacity, because this is only the 3rd teaching lesson, so you might not be super familiar with them yet. But I do know that when you just project that one slide in the PowerPoint, that's just like the key and the way that it needs to be done. They're going to have a million questions, and it's going to be really hard to explain. So take it at your own pace. Don't be afraid to take it really slow. It's a crafty activity. It's less of an experiment, more of a craft, but then they can also hang them up in their classroom, and it's super cute when finished. Yeah.